Welcome to Season 6 of Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, introducing corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner, introducing their great idea in our guest blog, found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us from Evergreen, Colorado. Carrie Lehtonen is the founder of Firefly. She's a holistic health practitioner, registered yoga teacher and educator, and as an author, she published her first book, Pawsitive Perspectives, in 2024. Carrie joins us today to discuss how her life changed after surviving a heart attack, reinventing herself to build a wellness community with retreats around the world to help you tap into your passion and purpose. It is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Carrie.
Thank you, Trish. It's great to be here today.
You know, I completely appreciate you sharing that your personal life changed your career because you were a seasoned HR professional and you then had to refocus your own purpose. So give us a little insight as to how that came about. I mean, having a heart attack at 31 years old must have been a huge shock.
Yes, it was. And I knew I had a family history of heart disease, but I always thought I was doing the right things. I was very physically active, relatively healthy, but I was also working in a really stressful job. And I do believe that stress did have an impact on having a heart attack at such a young age. The day of my heart attack, I was on a 60-mile bike ride with friends, and that was something that was pretty typical of me. I was a triathlete, and all throughout the day, I had symptoms that at the time I had no idea had anything to do with my heart. I felt lightheaded, I had indigestion, I had neck and shoulder pain, and they were all things that I explained away. And finally, in the last 10 miles or so of the ride, I started to feel pressure in my chest, and that's what didn't go away. It just kind of persisted after we got back from the ride. And I was very fortunate that my friend that I was with that day didn't accept no for an answer when he insisted that we go to the hospital, because otherwise, if I'd been by myself that day, I don't think I would have gone to the hospital. And I was at the hospital for several hours before they even tested my heart. I was in the waiting room for an hour. Then they were, testing my gallbladder, gave me this GI cocktail, told me it would feel better. I would feel better. And finally, the doctor looked at my chart and said, "Oh, you have a family history of heart disease." And as soon as he said that, I knew that's what was happening, but he must have seen the change in my face, because he said, "Oh, it's probably nothing. We just want to run a test and see." And they ran a blood test and immediately went into emergency mode. My heart was in distress. They didn't know why yet, but the cardiologist was on his way. And it turns out I had a blood clot in my coronary artery, and I would not have survived had I not gone to the hospital that night. So
Wow.
A lot of things came together to save my life that day. And it was definitely my wake-up call of, am I really doing what I am meant to be doing with my life? And
right.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, not to say that that was probably one of the most terrifying experiences of your life, but I've certainly heard from lots of folks who have to make a complete 360 in your career that that's a whole other level of fear. And I know that, giving up a successful career as an HR professional and having to transition into, a holistic health practitioner and registered yoga teacher, that takes time too. I mean, that doesn't happen overnight. So give our viewing,
it definitely took time.
Yeah, for sure. So give our viewing and listening audience an idea as to how you transitioned from one career to the other career, because sometimes we think that these things happen automatically. And, you and I both know that there's lots of time and energy that goes into a whole new change, right?
Yes. And I was just thinking about it this morning of how much time it really took between my heart attack and when I fully left the corporate world. And it was 9 years, because my education was in human resources. I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
So my wake-up call of my heart attack made me realize that HR wasn't my long-term future, but I also didn't know what was. So
Right,
I had
right.
to really start to explore a lot. And learning about heart disease, I started to get involved with the American Heart Association. And I learned that at the time, I didn't realize that heart disease was the number one killer of men and women. I thought it was more of a man's disease. I also didn't know that 80% is preventable with lifestyle changes. And so when I learned that, I was like, we have a big opportunity here. People don't need to be dying of heart disease. And it just so happened I ended up having a conversation with another woman who was a health coach, and she told me about the program that she had gone through. And so I received education from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I mostly started that program to learn more about what I could do to help protect my heart. And along the way, I decided, well, this is something I can share with other women and hopefully help them in their journey too. So I started doing some health coaching on the side. I was still working in human resources, but I had taken a different position so that I could, with a company that I'd worked for previously, that I knew that I would have more flexibility and be able to keep kind of exploring these other opportunities. And about a year after that is when I discovered yoga, and things all really came together from that time of the mind, body, spirit connection, and just how important that is. And also the impact that stress had on me. So
Sure.
I dove deep into yoga. I went through yoga teacher training to learn more. And the people that I worked with at my HR job knew that I had gone through teacher training, and they're like, oh, will you teach us a class? So I started teaching one class a week for them and then two classes a week. And it just started to snowball from there. And again, it took a number of years. I started my own business while I was still working in human
Sure.
resources.
Yeah.
And then finally in January of 2018 is when I took the leap and completely left the corporate world to focus full-time Firefly Community.
So tell us what Firefly Community does, because when I read your story, you have, although you're concentrating on health and wellness and do, stress management workshops, and you do yoga retreats, or yoga classes, both online and in person, but you also have this retreat component to your business where I'm assuming you take a group of women and collectively you get together, you go to a particular destination, and then you kind of offer all of those disciplines in, a week or a weekend or something like that. So tell us a little bit about how the Firefly community has come to be, because that's a really interesting build as well.
Yeah, and I myself have always loved to travel a lot. And so it sort of came together for me of it's my passion, but I had personally attended a yoga retreat. I think it was in 2011 or 2012, and realized how big of an impact that can have to get out of your day-to-day life and focus on yourself. And how often do we really do that? Focus on self-care and letting go of all the outside noise so that we can actually hear our own inner voice and what we care about and what we're passionate about. And so I saw that as a great opportunity to help other people get out of the daily grind and be able to be somewhere that they could really just tap into their own passion and purpose. So my first retreat was in 2015 to Costa Rica, which is a country that has my heart. I return there every year, except for in 2020, of course. Um, and and it was just an amazing experience. So every year since then, I've led at least two, sometimes up to five retreats per year. I live in
Fantastic.
Colorado, so I usually do a weekend retreat in Colorado or two, because I do realize not everybody can get away to Costa
Travel.
Rica for
Yeah.
a week. So,
Yeah.
um, and then I usually offer at least one or two international trips. So often I go back to Costa Rica for a week at a time, but I also add in some other locations because I do have a lot of people who continue to return on retreats and are
They
looking
want the
for
variety.
experiences. Yeah, so
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
for
this
sure.
year we're going to the Azores, which are the islands off of Portugal.
Fantastic. You know what I love is that you give people an opportunity to step outside their comfort zone, right? We're gonna leave house, as you say, the daily grind of day-to-day living and explore a new place, new food, new experiences, take your headspace to a different level. But then when they come back, they can also realign with you for the online courses. So the connectivity is there. It's not just about going on this awesome trip and connecting with your purpose, but then you help to guide people through on a long-term basis where they can join you virtually. I mean, I'm here in Canada, so to come to Colorado for a weekend retreat is probably very doable. And then I can join you occasionally for the online options. So you're keeping that connectivity going, which is really cool. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your book, because I'm an absolute dog lover. I mean, and the title of your book is Pawsitive Perspectives, which I love. So give us an indication, because you published in 2024. So what was the theory behind the book?
Yeah, so my dog Ella, and I have the book here with me, Pawsitive Perspectives. So this is my girl
I love
Ella.
the cover. I love the cover.
It was just fortunate that I have this beautiful picture of her from a road trip we took in Montana. Um, I spent 15 years with this dog from the time that I was 28 to 43. And those were also the years where I was going through all this transformation,
Transition, yeah.
from my heart attack to the business and moving to the mountains. We had lived in the suburbs and we moved to Evergreen. And, Ella really was my soulmate, my best friend. And when she passed in 2021, I, um, I started just writing down stories about her because I didn't want to forget, because she was such an important part of my life. And as I was writing the stories, I realized I really learned a lot from this dog. She just had such personality, and she was so unique and just had all this wisdom within her. And at the time, I had written a couple of articles for an online publication called Elephant Journal. And I published an article, the top 10 lessons that I learned from my dog. And it received a lot of great feedback. And so I was like, oh, this, really is something.
We're
So
on
I
to
just kept
something.
writing. Yeah. So I kept writing and writing and writing. And before I knew it, I had 40 life lessons that I had learned from Ella, and decided maybe this is something, maybe this is a book. And I met Susan Crossman, who is the person who connected us.
You're right.
She's a wonderful editor.
Yeah, she
So
was the editor of my book, my first book too.
yeah. And so, of course, this was my first experience writing a book. So I shared it with her to just find out, Susan, what do you think? Does this have legs to it? And she also thought it was something that other people could take value from, and that, it's something I should put out there in the world. So she really helped me a lot, not only with editing, but just with the entire publishing process, which was a whole new learning experience for me. I knew nothing about what it took to publish a book, but I decided to independently publish it because I wanted to maintain the voice and I wanted to get it out there in the world. And I guess I'm not a very patient person sometimes, so so that seemed like the quickest route to go. So I was able to publish it last summer. And I just recently decided to put together a companion journal for the book. So it's this is the proof, but I just
Perfect.
put together the companion journal because I want people to be able to take those 40 lessons and apply them in their own life. And I've
Sure.
always been a firm believer that the answers are already within us. We just need to kind of get to them, clear out
Nurture
the
them out.
noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because you've mentioned a few times throughout our discussion about journaling. And not only did journaling, and that's actually how I wrote my first book too. I started to journal. So do you feel that journaling is an important component in tapping into finding your own purpose?
I find that it was really helpful for me. And I think, different things work for different people. So I think it's
Right.
always great to just try out, what works for you. But journaling for me, it's always been easier for me to communicate how I feel in writing. Writing has always been my my way of communicating. And so journaling has been a big part of my life all throughout my life. I realized, I was writing journals way back when I was a kid. I would,
We
keep
called them diaries
notes of,
back then, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we
Right.
didn't call, it had a different name, but the same purpose,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
So I absolutely love how your story, there's this wonderful thread through your story of how you've taken your life experience, jumped outside your comfort zone, tapped into something through serendipity and really taking a look at some of the signs and signals that you've been given. And then it's taken you on a whole new journey that leads to something not only different, but better than where you were before. So, and I absolutely love that you've taken the idea of providing a companion journal for the book, because what a wonderful thing to do after somebody's got these 40 life lessons and they're okay, but I need to keep tapping into this knowledge. And the journal helps them do that, right? It keeps it top of mind. Now, one of the things
Right.
that we always do is we all are always looking for inspiration, I find, right? Everybody, listen, post COVID, we're all looking for a little bit of inspiration to kind of take us over those hurdles in life. So, besides your own wonderful book and the journal that
Mhm.
you have that goes along with it, is there something that's currently on your own bedside table that you're reading for inspiration right now?
Yes, and I actually have three going right now. I on my Kindle, I'm reading "What If We Get It Right" by Ayana Johnson, which is a
Mhm.
really great, kind of uplifting story about climate change. I mean, I feel like a lot of information around climate change is doom and gloom, but there are a lot of
Yeah.
great people out there doing wonderful things to help combat the the issue. And so it's kind of a more positive look at, what if we do these things and we get it right. And
Yeah.
then I also have Living Your Yoga by Judith Hanson Lassiter, which just helps you take yoga off of the mat into your day-to-day life. So, that's
That's a
something
cool
that
idea.
yeah, it's been really a lot of good reminders. I feel like again, a lot
Mhm.
of this is stuff we know. It's just you need that little reminder.
Reinforcement, yeah.
Um, and then since I've been trying to focus the last couple years more in writing, I also have The Listening Path by Julia Cameron, which I've read a few of her books, and this one just helps you just deepen your capacity for listening and noticing the world around you through sound. So that's been a really great one as
Well,
well.
you certainly have listened to the universe and the signs and signals that it has taken you, because you've gone sort of a full 360 transition. And we're certainly very glad that you did, because you're providing opportunities for folks like ourselves to reconnect. And I think that one of the lovely things is the I love the retreats, because you're combining all of those wonderful skills that you've learned. I'm sure you share your book, Pawsitive Perspectives, with everyone that goes on the retreat, because who doesn't want to leave with 40 wonderful lessons that you can apply when you get home? But one of the things that we do in the guest blog that we ask everybody to share is some words of advice. So why don't we wrap up our conversation today with sharing with our viewing and listening audience why your words of advice are important. And they are determination, curiosity, and the love of learning.
Yeah, so I'll start with determination because being an entrepreneur, of course, is not easy.
I know,
and
I call it 3 Ds, and that's one of the Ds. So I love that word.
so you can't shy away from a challenge. My passion for what I do is really what drives me and keeps me motivated and keeps me determined to keep going, even when things get challenging.
Yeah.
Curiosity for me is, one of the lessons that really had a profound impact on me from yoga is to approach life with a beginner's mind and let go of any preconceived notions or, expectations and what you think you know, and approach things with an open heart and an open mind. So I think always being curious and letting that guide you versus thinking you know everything or thinking that things have to be a certain way. And then finally, love of learning. As a solopreneur, I'm the only one who manages and runs Firefly Community. I have to wear a lot of hats, but I've
Sure.
always loved learning and exploring new things and just, one example of this is during COVID, I couldn't be leading retreats. I couldn't be leading in-person classes and workshops. So I had to completely pivot and move my programs online, which meant learning about video editing and, all of these other things that I had never done before. And, luckily I do love to learn new things. So it was challenging, but it kept my business afloat when I couldn't be with people in person.
Well, we're absolutely thrilled that you have taken us on this wonderful journey from corporate life to entrepreneurship. And I love how you've interwoven and really been keeping it real with your personal experience, because there isn't anything more invigorating and motivating than hearing that someone who has overcome the obstacles is actually enjoying their own definition of success. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience with us, Carrie. And I know that our viewing and listening audience is going to be interested in hearing about these retreats, because in today's day and age, who doesn't want to go away for a few days, leave all of the real life things behind and just dive into finding our own purpose. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to be on.
As our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Keeping It Real, introducing you to the person behind the logo. And if you'd like to connect with our guest, you're going to find Carrie's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series, and we invite you to share your business story. Just visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.